Hi, everybody. Yes, so I'm going to just talk a little bit and then whiz through the slides. So the Great Big Dorset Hedge is, as you probably know by now, is one of the main big projects for Dorset Climate Action Network. And it came about as part of land use team meetings about it would be nice to have a project and a sort of an engagement project, volunteer engagement project, and it's what do we focus on, so lots of different conversations, and hedgerows seem to be a solution, timing with the various campaigns from the CPRE, the PTES, and government incentives that we were hoping to come through, which have, of course, come through now. So hedgerows are a very non-contentious, within reason, part of the landscape. They wrap around the landscape, they join urban and rural areas potentially, and they connect fragmented ecosystems, and they provide enormous ecological and wildlife benefits for really what is quite a compact, efficient space. So we're looking at all sorts of carbon sequestration, flood management, wildlife corridors, wildlife habitats, for such an enormous variety of wildlife as well. So they are an attractive asset as well, so they fit within the AONB landscape. Within urban areas, hedgerows, well, our gardens are the most really important potential space for biodiversity. Our gardens in the UK are as much as our national parks if you put them all together. So they're a very important potential source of biodiversity, and so they are important to link across the landscape. So this Great Big Dorset Hedgerow project is not just a rural project, it's an urban project as well. It's an education project, hoping to get people to understand how they can help protect nature, and they can get involved really at any level and any part of the project they would like. So it's taken about 2 years to design and to get going on. And just a few facts about hedgerows. George Eustace, the Minister involved in the environmental land management stewardship programmes, developing them, Minister George Eustace said they are probably the most important ecological building blocks of our landscape. And the aim of our project is that we will facilitate the enhancement of existing hedgerows in the landscape and stimulate the planting of hedgerow, so that we are trying to aim for the 40% increase targeted by the Glasgow Climate Change Committee. Most farmers see them as a very important part of their landscape. How they manage them will depend upon how they fit within the landscape, what their time available is, what they are aiming for their role of the hedgerow within their landscape. I have a quote here from one of the farmers that we've been involved with, Tim Harris from Powerstock, and he says that farmers are the custodians of the hedgerows in the landscape, and we have found with our engagement with farmers that is very much a feeling of care and a feeling of wanting to have the time to be involved in managing them. There is a video playing out in the foyer that shows a few little snippets of information, volunteers that have been involved in the programme, having voicing their opinion about their involvement. And we have a lot of information on our website, and we've got various cards out in there and in the foyer that you can pick up, and there's a QR code so you can go straight to the website. So it's a volunteer engagement project. We have a lot of volunteers signed up. And the volunteers are really enjoying being involved in the project. And at this stage, we're surveying. So in order to know how you're going to restore a hedgerow, you've got to survey it and know what you've got. So we were looking at hedgerow structure, looking at species, looking at metrics such as depth, height, and where that hedgerow is within its own landscape. So just very briefly, because I could go on about this forever, so I will try and be good, stick to my 5 minutes. So, what am I looking at? Oh, there we go. I've got to speak to the mic and remember what the slide does. So as it says, want to facilitate the restoration of hedgerows. We've been this is very difficult actually. I can't see anything, that's the trouble. Because I can't see that far. So we've surveyed so far about 800 kilometres of hedgerow. As Giles said this morning, we've done 800 kilometres, but we haven't done, we've surveyed, we haven't planted. And it's all very much by conversation and invitation by farmers. They are very interested in how the surveying will link into the new sustainable farming incentives, which are survey-based, so a farmer needs to actually look at their hedgerows. Most farmers don't have the time for that. And so if you invite a team of nicely trained people to carefully walk around your land and save you maybe 10 hours of time of looking at your hedgerows, this is, of course, of benefit to everybody involved. So we want to help take the sustainable farming incentives a leap forwards. And this is just a brief summary of how the incentive will help incentivize the farmer and to the kind of amounts of money that they can get to help with their planting and restoration projects. As a farm owner, I know that these incentives are useful. They certainly don't cover all your costs, but they make the difference between thinking, I can't manage this, I can't do it, I can't afford it, and thinking, actually, this is a step towards my costs, and it's something I want to do. So it's certainly not a profit-generating exercise, but it is so valuable in promoting the nature recovery and getting those hedgerows in place or restored. So in many cases, this might just be funding towards hedge laying, and that might be by expert contractors, or many of the contractors are keen to train up volunteers because they love their art and they want to promote it. This is just to show you the level of technicality we're involved in. We're using the People's Trust for Endangered Species hedgerow metric system designed by Nigel Adams. And this is now being suggested by DEFRA as the method to follow for hedgerow surveying. So it means we're tying in with them with our project because we've kind of influenced them. Our project manager, John Calder's heavily involved with pushing DEFRA in the right direction. This is the kind of data that we've been generating. So in the background, you can see some people looking at hedgerows. And then we're looking at depth, width, we're looking at different species. So we, obviously, at different times of the year, it can be difficult to identify different species. You start looking at twigs at certain times of year and getting your eye in for different types of bark. And but you're on the whole, it's quite straightforward to learn to identify different species, and most people really enjoy learning those new skills or enhancing those skills if they've got them. We do small groups of surveying. It's usually 3 or 4 people at the most. Otherwise, you just end up chatting and not surveying, or at least that's what happens with my surveys. And then you can see from the bar chart that links into, if you remember the Adams code on the slide before, you can see that each, you've got the different proportions of hedgerow that have come up in the different quality. A farmer, a landowner, or a parish council will be able to look at that and think, right, I can focus on hedge 635B, and that's where I need to do some hedge laying. So it's all very carefully mapped, and it saves time, it's efficient in a good way, and we're getting some really nice results with our farm surveys and some very good indications of what work needs to be done. This is just an example slide of how we develop the volunteer role. So some people, we have majority of people just want to come on surveys and just be involved in that side. And then we have others who might want to be a coordinator. There are mapping techniques to be done. There's data input to be done. So as you can imagine, the mapping and the data input are where we're slightly struggling to get coordinators and volunteers. So anybody out there loves doing GIS mapping or wants to do that side of the project, we'd be very willing to take you on. We are looking, we have already partnered with CPRE and the AOMB. We've had a grant from the AOMB last year, CPRE grant, and so they're very supportive to us. And we're looking also at partnering with Dorset Council in terms of their farm clusters, but also in terms of they're helping us with running the project side. Environment Agency are very interested in it. So there's a lot of realization that a project of this scale is actually managing to engage with people, which of course is very difficult for government bodies to do. Whereas because we can have that volunteer engagement, it seems to be working as becoming quite an important project. And that's an example of the kind of maps we generate from the results, all the different colours. It's all colour-coded. It's all amazingly put in by one ecologist, John Blanchard, is helping us, as well as various other similar projects. So some incredible amount of data input going into that. I think we've just surveyed Alice's lovely estate as well. And the conclusion is beautiful hedgerows, beautiful hedgerows and some deer damage, of course. And oh, that's it. That's it from me. So I'll just read one last statement from John Calder. So we've had 90, we were wrong about the 800 kilometres, 250 kilometres of hedgerows surveyed so far in 12 months, active partition of 90 volunteers, mostly in West Dorset. And I have to say the small field structure and the really amazing hedgerows of West Dorset have driven the work to be so far mostly in West Dorset. And so we just need to extend that into all the other areas of Dorset. And thank you very much.